Greetings, YouTube. The following is completely a personal story. It really doesn't have anything to do with politics or role-playing games. It's answering a question that someone has just posed me. I've been having a conversation with a friend of mine concerning comic shops. I used to be a really big comic shop geek. I would spend hours and hours in comic shops. We used to have one in the Manchester area where I lived called the Comic Store. Yeah, I know, original. And I would spend hours there every week. It's where I met my first wife, which led me to meeting my wife. So I guess I have a whole lot to thank to comic stores. But there's a comic store in my city now. It's the only one, and it's actually it's quite nice. But I haven't been there in about 2 years, and there's a reason. I was there one day, and it was during the era when they were debating the healthcare reform issue. Now, the owner of the place, one of the owners, there's three, is a rather conservative fellow. But he's a friend of mine. I liked him. I spent time there with him talking. I'd buy the occasional comic. I pick up the occasional gaming things. Mostly I bought stuff for my wife or just, shot the bull with people. He didn't mind my presence, and so I didn't crouch on his harsh as mellow, so everything was good. And he had a friend that would come by every day. This guy had some kind of job that entailed him doing troubleshooting, so that he was literally on the road every single day. And a lot of the time he was on the road. He actually wasn't on a site. He was kind of like in limbo a lot of the time. So whenever he had time to do it, he would come by and have lunch with his buddy at the comic store. And so it was frequently that I would be there talking to the owner of the comic store, and his friend would be there that was talking to the owner of the comic store. And his friend was a little conservative, or I should say is. I have no belief that he's changed since the last time I spoke to him. Actually, saying he's a little conservative was an understatement. He was slightly right of Reagan, of Bush, of Cheney. He was as far right as you can get and still be on any political spectrum at all. He had a very harshly anti-tax, anti-everything that didn't involve keeping every dime he made in his pocket. He did not believe in the public trust at all, and essentially dismissed it as being of any value to him whatsoever, which is something that I disagreed with. And during our hanging out one day, we're talking about the healthcare reform, and I'm a big supporter of the healthcare reform. I think it failed miserably at achieving its goal, but it was better than nothing. I believe in a single-payer system. Public option, the whole 9 yards. I want us to have a system that takes care of every single American's health care. We all pay in, we all benefit. Cool. It works in other countries, it works well in other countries. It can work here. We are not unique, we are not Martians. But during the debate, I brought up the fact that at that time, there were 48 million Americans that had no health care. And I said, what are we going to do? These people need health care. And every year, 18,000 of them are dying because we don't have health care. And the shop owner's very conservative friend looked at me straight in the eye and said that I wish they would hurry up and all die and get out of the way. And it wasn't hyperbole. It wasn't a tossed off comment. It was something he believed in his very heart of hearts. It was absolutely the cruelest, most vicious thing I have ever heard a human being say to my face. And it broke me. I stopped for a second. I didn't know what to do. I looked at him. I walked up and I shook his hand and I said, "Good luck, brother." And I walked out of the store. I went to my car and I cried. Because the thought that a human being could say something so incredibly vicious and mean it and be completely unaware of what he was saying, of what the ramifications are of what he said, broke me. I drove out of the parking lot and I literally got lost. I've lived in this city for 40 years and I got lost because I didn't know where I was. I was unmoored in reality. I eventually found my way home, and I never went back. I don't ever want to see that person again. I don't ever want to lay eyes on them. And the memory of that was so horrible, so unpleasant, that I can't walk back into that store, which is a pity, because it's the only store in the area that sells role-playing games. It's the only store in the area that has a gaming community that I can get in contact with, or at least, I should say that, till quite recently. A store just opened up in my area. So now I have an option at least. But that had the comic book vibe. That place was the spot where I hung out. And it's gone. So that's why I don't go back there. That's why I stay away from the only comic book shop I've got in my city. And why I no longer go back and talk to the owner, a man who I actually quite liked and respected, even if we didn't agree with each other. But his friend showed me an ugly side of conservatism, one that I have encountered here on the internet far, far too many times. But when a troll is typing on the screen or ranting in a video, it's different than when a person looks you right in the eyes. And rather than pay a single additional cent in tax money, wants 48 million fellow citizens to die.